Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, please subscribe. I'd really love that. If you're returning, how you doing? What we're going to be talking about today is the collapse of the middle class. So grab your coffee, even if it's iced coffee, maybe a SNICK snack or two, and let's get into it. So the middle class. Who here feels like you're in the middle class, right? Raise your hand, right? The middle class in the United States has been steadily shrinking, and the gap between like the elites, the ultra wealthy, and the rest of us has grown to absurd proportions. But it hasn't always been this way. When I was growing up in the 80s, right? Even in the 90s when I was in high school, it seemed like almost everyone was in the middle class. And then, of course, there was like the rich, the wealthy, whatever. And then there was like the poor people. And then, and that was like in the 80s too, in the 90s, it didn't matter. But the vast majority of the population was comfortable somewhere like in the middle, right? But sadly, things have changed so much since that time, especially today. Most of the people I know are struggling. And I mean, struggling. It's like, even me and Sean, we're like, all right, what are we going to do? You know what I mean? I mean, according to a report that just came out, it was just released, in all 50 states, it now takes an income of more than $100,000 a year in order for a family of four people to live the American dream. Okay, so is your family bringing in more than $100,000 a year? We definitely don't even come close to that. Because according to this report, if you're not bringing in that kind of money, then the American dream is not for you. Sorry, right? So our leaders purposely pursue these flip-flopping policies that they knew would cause inflation. And when new money enters the system, most of it tends to flow into the hands of those at the top of the economic food chain. You know, the elites would never come down to us useless eaters, right? So the ultra wealthy have been doing very well in this economic environment, but high inflation is absolutely killing the rest of us, honestly. I mean, seriously, if you really think about it. Remember, like 2019, 2020, when you can literally go to the supermarket and you can plop down $200 and your shopping cart is overflowing. Now you plop down $200 and you walk out with maybe 3 or 4 bags of groceries, and you're like, where the hell did all that money go? All right. And you can't deny that. You can't even sit here and say, I don't know what you're talking about. Really? Because I think I do. Okay. Remember, just a few months ago, I had 8 people living in my household. My food bill was $1,500 a month. Okay. I know what I'm talking about. I know what that pinch feels like. Okay. And now that my kids and my grandkids have gone out on their own, okay, I mean, yeah, the food bill has dropped, but I still have a handicapped nephew living with me who has celiacs and he can only eat gluten free. Well, gluten free, do you know how much a loaf of gluten free bread costs? It's anywhere from $5 to $7, depending on the brand. So, yeah, it, where you can buy 4 loaves of regular bread for 1 loaf of gluten free. It's absurd. But Gavin can't have anything with gluten in it. And I mean nothing. Okay. So at this point, and that's just food, that does not take into consideration our energy bills, our water bills, our internet bills, our car insurance, our cell phone bills, homeowners insurance policies, our property taxes, our car payments, if you have a car payment, whatever the case may be. If you add all of that up into one lump sum, your mind would go poof. Okay, it's absurd. But at this point, it takes the average US household an extra like $1,100 a month just to purchase the same amount of stuff and services that it did about 3 years ago. So what we are witnessing right now is the collapse of the middle class. The cost of living has been rising faster than incomes have been, and that is putting an extraordinary amount of financial stress on households. For example, car insurance. It's risen about 22% over the past 12 months. Okay. I told you guys that we were with USAA, right? Because we're military. Those son of a guns, for just liability on 2 cars with 4 people, they were charging us almost $500 a month. So what do? We switched to progressive, same coverage, same 4 people. We're paying just a little bit over like about $150 a month. So please tell me what's the difference? Same coverage, same 4 people. What's the flip-flop and difference? Nothing. Okay. So, I mean, I'm trying to, grasp the, like, what is your excuse, USAA? They don't have one. They said, well, our customer service. Really? Because I've never once called you. So next rebuttal, they don't have one. So here's another one, housing cost. It's been increasing at an even faster pace. People are moving down here to the Tampa Bay area in droves. And I'm like, why? There's nothing here. Florida is actually the number 2 state in the country for being the most expensive. Why do you want to move here? Go somewhere else. We're full. Okay. Plus, it's way too expensive to live here. And you don't make the amount of money that you need in order to survive here. I can attest to it. So, I mean, if you can believe it, the average monthly mortgage payment on a newly purchased home has risen 96% in just 4 years. 4 years. Yes. Now, according to Zillow, a typical person who would buy a house right now will pay nearly $2,200 a month, and that's with 10% down. Meaning homeownership now costs well above the 30% of a median income that was once thought to equate to affordable housing costs in America. There's no such thing as affordable housing anymore. None whatsoever. Homeownership is now out of reach for a huge chunk of the population, especially if you're like in your 20s. Needless to say, this is not a good thing. Why aren't the American people more upset about all of this? In a desperate attempt to maintain a middle-class standard of living, many Americans are piling up enormous amounts of debt. Some economists actually believe that the debt growth has become a substitution for income growth. Why? That's a stupid way of thinking. For example, okay, a 28-year-old woman, she entered a local auto dealership 3 years ago, came away with the keys to a Chevy Tahoe. Okay, it cost $84,000. Why she would pay 84 or even agree pay $84,000 for a Chevy Tahoe, but I guess that's the going rate for Chevy Tahoes. I don't know. I've never owned one. But this month, What she does for a living, she's a wedding photographer and she's a mom. She shared a TikTok video describing that she was forced to sell her dream car despite paying a car payment of $1,400 a month. I know, just stop right there. Don't even say it. In payments totaling more than $50,000. She still owes a balance of, get this, $74,000. How in the flip-flopping world did she only pay down the principal of $10,000 and when she paid in 50 grand? I don't understand it unless she literally had an interest rate of like 75% to her lender, which was GM Financial. I mean, the absurdity is making my brain hurt. So, of course, she's far from alone. So, at this point, millions of Americans have gotten into trouble with debt, and credit card delinquency rates have risen to unprecedented levels. If Americans really understood what our politicians in Washington and the so-called experts at the Federal Reserve were actually doing to us, there would be massive protests in the streets right this second. But there's not, unfortunately, because these days, a lot of Americans that actually retired are now heading back to work due to the rapidly rising cost of living. For example, a woman who retired in 2013 after a 50-year career that ranged from a game show producer to Hollywood party planner and casino executive. She settled into a life of golf games, game nights, and pickleball in her San Diego community, her daughter living nearby. She was living the dream. Then things got really expensive, like it did for the rest of us. Gas was nearly $5 a gallon. Her medication costs were adding up. The grocery bill was increasing. Can you imagine going back to work when you were 80 years old? Okay. This woman is just 5 years younger than my father. I can't imagine him going back to work. Well, this is what she had to do. And now she spends her retirement years handing out samples at Costco. Okay, so last October, at the age of 80, she ended her retirement and got a job giving out samples at Costco. The poor woman, my God. She likes serving, observing the people, she said, some going grocery shopping in heels and a full face of makeup, and others wearing pajamas and slippers. This ain't Walmart. Okay. Some people take one sample and others gobble up 2 or 3 or 4, she said. It just, She said, it just comes into my checking account every other week and I can pay for everything, she said, of her $18 an hour paycheck. Now, in recent months, prices have started to surge once again, if you haven't already noticed. And it has become clear that the cost of living crisis is not going away anytime soon. The middle class in the United States is going to continue to shrink, and that's not good news for any of us. Obviously, Sean and I are not in the middle class, which we thought we were, but we were wrong. So, who here in the community thought that they were in the middle class and now believe that you are now wrong because you don't make more than $100,000 a year? All right, guys, listen, I'm out of here. Okay. I'll see you in the next one. You stay safe, you stay positive, you keep prepping. And as always, fear less. Ciao.